Hello and thank you for joining us on this edition of People, Politics and Power. Welcome. Nigeria is a diverse and heterogeneous country with over 250 ethnic groups. In fact, some say over 600 ethnic nationalities. Now, three of the ethnic groups, the Igbos, the Hausas, and the Yorubas, are regarded as the dominant ones. No wonder then that issues of rights of the minorities feature prominently in the life of the nation. As far back as 1959, fears of domination and marginalization had been expressed by the minorities, with moves by the then colonial government to assuage the concerns of the minorities. Yet, cries of marginalization have continued to rent the air almost on a weekly or daily basis. This is in spite of some of the measures put in place to allay their fears and give them a sense of belonging in the scheme of things. Examples include the principle of federal character and the principle of zoning and rotation guiding major political offices has been practiced by most political parties in the country. The dominant ethnic groups have also been accused of appropriating the resources and the revenues of the Nigerian state to themselves, to the detriment of minority groups. There have also been allegations that some policies and programs of the federal government work against the interests of minorities in Nigeria. The latest is a language policy instituted by the Nigerian Army, where officers and men are being compelled to learn and speak the three major languages in the country. On People, Politics and Power today, we shall be taking another look at rights of minorities in Nigeria. How have these rights been upheld? Are extant laws, rules and regulations safeguarding minority rights being adhered to? Are there additional actions, policies and programs, and even laws that are needed to promote and protect minority rights in Nigeria? These were some of the questions that were raised at last week's retreat by Southern senators in Calabar, the Cross River State capital, by none other than the governor of Bayelsa State, Henry Seriake Dixon, who is also the chairman of the South-South Governors Forum. Let's take a listen to his remarks at the retreat to set the tone for our discussion on the protection of minority rights in Nigeria's federal system.
To give my perspective on how best we can protect minority rights. And how best can we do so than by supporting restructuring. The rights of all Nigerians can be best preserved and protected within the context of a restructure, truly federal, truly egalitarian, and democratic Nigeria. I've just come here to raise some issues that will provoke our thought and hopefully provide some clarity of thought on some of these issues as we move forward. You have asked me to talk about protection of minority rights, and I was asking myself, minorities, how do we define minorities? Very often, particularly in our context, when you talk of minority rights, a lot of people may think of mineral rights. But minority rights are far bigger and more all-encompassing than property rights or even environmental rights. Because you have so-called minorities in even non-mineral or non-oil producing environments. And yet, they qualify to be minorities. And yet, being Nigerians, they are entitled to the freedoms that our laws and our constitution, above all, must provide and guarantee for all. I was asking myself also, are we talking of minorities in the ethnic sense? Or we are talking of now the new minorities terms of political views and all of that. I know also that in this country, contrary to what a number of people may say about our country, this country has actually done very well in the area of protection, in the area of recognizing the rights of so-called minorities. I say so-called because I believe that even in this country, the so-called minorities are actually the unstated majority of this country. They are actually the majority of this country. And so if there are anybody out there, a so-called minority, either you have subscribed to that propaganda that says you are minority, or you have created room for people to refer to you as such, then you better listen to it. In this country, the so-called minorities are the majority. But I say that Nigeria has done very well because if you look at the statistics of those who have had an opportunity to lead this nation and to serve this nation at the very top level, and I'm not just talking of president or head of state, I'm talking of those who command our armed forces and all of that. If you look at them, you see that in this country, we need to pat ourselves on the back. So many people that have been presidents of this country, military heads of states, contrary to the language they speak, if you look at them ethnically, you will discover that indeed they belong to this group of so-called minorities who, as I've said over and over again, are the actual majority. And I come also from a state that just a few years back had a wonderful opportunity given to you by all Nigerians, majority, minority, whatever description. An opportunity was given to offer service at the topmost level as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I think we should congratulate Nigeria. We have done better than a number of countries. We have done better than most people. So this one area I thought I should highlight. Now, having gone with that, because as I said, I'm not here with a prepared text. I came to share perspective with friends and colleagues and compatriots. The other issue I would like to throw some light about has to do with the vexed issue of a definition of restructuring. My good friend, the governor of Jigawa, highlighted that maybe the difficulty of interpretation, that a lot of people say restructuring and they mean so many things. But I think that is not exactly the truth in this matter. Restructuring simply means a call for constitutional reform. It means a call for constitutional amendment, a call for amendment of the laws of this country to guarantee a more stable country, a more inclusive country, and for a return to the original founding principles of our nation, i.e. a return to federalism. So there should be no confusion about it. And in case you don't understand what restructuring means, let's also be clear that restructuring does not mean secession. Even if there are so many interpretations to restructuring, and what so many people may want out of restructuring Nigeria, let us be very clear that restructuring does not mean one thing. Restructuring does not mean, and those who are in support of restructuring do not mean they are not proponents of a divided Nigeria. Restructuring does not mean, and it's not coterminous with a Nigeria that is divided. No. That's not what it means. I think that bringing that issue of unity on one side and restructuring, and portraying restructuring as being coterminous with secession or disintegration, for me, is missing the point. The call for a restructured Nigeria, as I said earlier, is a call for constitutional amendment. And that's why we must thank the President of the Senate and the Senate leadership, and particularly the chairman of the Southern Senators Forum and all the members, for creating this platform. And why not the Senate? Why not the National Assembly? Because you have the most legitimate platform to talk about and to lead initiatives about constitutional amendment and reform. And that is what we are doing. All we are to do, all stakeholders need to do, is to work with you and give you support, so that we can have a meeting of minds to see the areas that can be agreed upon. And this is why I agree completely with all the lectures and the opinions already given by the Senate President and the keynote given by His Excellency the Deputy Senate President and the remarks of the Chairman of FORO. All of it pointing to the need for us to engage ourselves more. And as the Senate President rightly said, we shouldn't shy away from this issue. The more divided opinions are, for me, the better, because we are a democratic nation. And we should not stifle views. We shouldn't play McCarthyism, where people stand up and question the patriotism and commitment of their fellow countrymen. No, that does not work. The more the opinions, the better. As the Senate President's paper rightly said, as the Senate President's paper rightly referred to us, he talked about what is going on in the US. It's a lively and healthy and robust debate going on there right now as we speak about what it means to be an American, especially in the era of Trump. That is a legitimate discussion they're having over there. If you go to the UK, you just saw how they went through the Brexit vote and the debates that are going on there. 2 years ago in the UK, they had a legitimate referendum as to the future itself of the United Kingdom, those who colonized us. They never treated their own unity as being something that is not negotiable. So don't tell me that Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable. That's not the right way to put it. I am a nationalist. I am a Pan-Africanist. I believe that if I have an opportunity, Nigeria is not even large enough for me. I want this country, and most of us want this country to even be bigger as it is. So there's no room for disintegration, no room for secession of Nigeria. No, that's not what we're talking about. What we are saying is, how do we make Nigeria's existence and our greatness more apparent, reliable, sustainable, moving forward? If the United Kingdom to subject themselves to a vote on Scotland, and let me tell you, if you put that referendum, majority of Nigerians will vote for unity of Nigeria. Because the unity of Nigeria is desirable, highly desirable. We are better off in a large country as well. And I've always taken the view, even among some of my people, you guys don't listen to extreme elements in this country. We have enough people of goodwill in every area in this country who believe that our best interests, collectively and individually, are best secured and protected and preserved in a united Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is the three elements. I've told some of my people, and I say it here openly, my state has over 30% of the oil and gas reserves in this country. A number of you don't know that.
That's correct.
Now, I don't want to be a citizen of one tiny oil-rich country that one neighboring country can in 5 hours or less overrun. No. I am a proud Nigerian citizen. I want to be a member, and I'm proud to be a member of this great Nigerian family. Big, strong, reliable, yes, which is capable really of fulfilling the dream of the black man. This is one of the greatest nations on the face of the earth. But you and I and all of us have a duty. Just as our founding fathers had patience and patriotism and accommodation and wisdom to listen to themselves by holding different conferences both here and abroad, the present leaders of this country must rise up. So we call for leadership responsibility. And Mr. Attorney General, yes, your views, I have your paper. But see, the truth is that Nigerian unity cannot be sustained by strong military force and security presence. No! They are getting it wrong. They are getting it wrong. Nigerian unity cannot be sustained merely by the constitutional provisions that we know are inefficient. You talk about Federal Character Commission. My state has very few people employed in Abuja. So these constitutional provisions are there, yes. But that is the very reason we need that debate. That's the reason we need that reform. Let us see how we can make these things actually work. Because let me tell you, the history is over there. If with all the strong military might of USSR, they couldn't prevent a collapse of that big empire, that behemoth. Who told us, whoever tells anybody, that Nigeria's unity is dependent on a strong military and security force? No! Of course they have their role to play, and it's our duty to encourage and support and build a strong defense and security force. Yes! But in the end, Nigeria's unity and our greatness depends on us, we Nigerians. We Nigerians, and the solidarity and support we give to this country. This country was not a mistake. Even if the British didn't create it, some of us who believe so much in Nigeria being the beacon of Africa, if we found good friends like this in sufficient number, we would have recreated Nigeria. Is that not so? Yes. So this country is not a mistake.
Well, that was the governor of Bayelsa State, Henry Siriake Dixon, at the senators' retreat. Now, at the retreat, the senators urged President Muhammadu Buhari to take a second look at the report of the 2014 National Conference, as it may hold the solution to Nigeria's challenges of building a sustainable unity. Let's take a listen.
"57 years after independence, Nigeria seems to be at crossroads, still undecided on the path to take to move the country forward. Even after a bitter civil war experience, many of the country's old agitations have refused to go away. Quite persistent has been the demand for restructuring, a call that in recent time has sharply divided the country, questioning Nigeria's unity. As the conversation gathers momentum, Southern senators at the end of the summit in Calabar have asked President Muhammadu Buhari to implement the 2014 National Conference report on restructuring.
We therefore urge President Muhammadu Buhari to convoke a meeting of the National Assembly leadership, governors, and the leadership of state houses of assembly to a closed-door brainstorming session to commence the implementation of the recommendations of the 2014 National Conference.
The lawmakers also want the leadership of the National Assembly to begin debate on the report. Nigeria had spent a lot of money, energy and time on the conference report, which, like many others, have continued to gather dust. The lawmakers want the 2014 report dusted and implemented, especially as it relates to devolution of powers and resource control. While the summit resolves that Nigeria's unity cannot be compromised, it insists on the imperative of restructuring as the panacea to many of Nigeria's current political, social and economic challenges. And as the revered Bishop Matthew Kuka puts it, Nigeria requires a clear vision to be able to achieve these.
And for me, the real challenge is how do we create a vision of a country that is not here, but it's a possibility. Because if you don't have a clear vision, politics is actually meant to be building blocks of a vision. If you don't have a vision, if you have a situation in which people get to power and then start figuring out what they want to do with it.
General Ikem Nwachukwu fought in the Civil War to keep Nigeria one. He has also served Nigeria in various other capacities, including serving as delegate in the 2005 and 2014 National Conference. Here, he advised his friend, the President, to take a look at the 2014 National Conference report.
You have fantastic opportunity in history to call a meeting of well-meaning Nigerians to take a look at the 2014 National Conference reports and recommendations.
The Southern senators may have boldly taken the conversation on restructuring into Nigeria's National Assembly, but whether or not their wish would fall through will greatly depend on how their counterparts in the North view it. In the time being, and while the argument continues, Nigeria remains at the crossroads where it must quickly decide which way to go.
Indeed, Nigeria is at the crossroads. Where does it go from here? And how does it protect the rights of its citizens, whether they are majority or they are in the minority? Of course, our focus today is how to protect minority rights in a federal structure, in a federal system of government. I'm joined in the studio now by Dan Alabra. Dan Alabra is the Special Advisor on Public Affairs to Bayelsa State Governor, and of course he will be joined by a public affairs analyst and the Director General of the Heritage Center, a think tank organization on politics, economics and opinions, Dr. Kachi Ononuju, and will be expected to throw some more light on the issues that were raised at the retreat, and especially those views that were canvassed by Governor Sirake Dixon of Bayelsa State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for finding time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we should begin.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Dr. Kach, Mr. Labra, maybe we should begin with properly defining and understanding the concept of federalism. It does mean a lot of things to different people. In our context, what is the kind of federalism that we are practicing, or that which we want to see?
Clearly, we cannot say that Nigeria is practicing federalism, even though we have it in our constitution that Nigeria is a federal state or is a federal country. And it is because the kind of federalism we have in Nigeria is such that is lopsided. That is why you have all the kind of agitations, all the fears expressed, from different groups, from different sections of the country. So until we begin to do the right thing, these agitations will not stop.
Well, when you say our federalism is lopsided, what do you mean by that? By the lopsidedness? How is it lopsided?
Okay. Now, if you look at the operation, the way Nigeria has gone about practicing federalism, you will see that we do more of unitary system of government than federal system, because power is centralized. In a truly federal system, the states are very powerful, even more than the center. But today, it's an inverse relationship. What we have is a center that is so powerful, the center that even controls the state, a center that gives orders to the state, and we cannot continue. And the problem that arises from this is the fact that economically our growth is also stunted, because the states cannot even develop at their own pace. They are developing at a pace that the center gives to them. For instance, why would a state like Enugu that has coal deposits not explore its deposits for it to be able to generate power? Why would the Niger Delta states, for instance Bayelsa, that has 30% of the oil and gas reserves, not able to exploit these reserves, these resources, to be able to generate power, even if solely Bayelsa state? Why would the states in the north, for instance, that have what is it called now, the mineral resources that they can exploit, why can't the states in the north exploit their mineral resources and use it to generate revenue for those states? But today what you have is, anytime you want to touch anything that is a resource, a natural resource, the federal government comes like a big brother to breathe on you, and you are not able to even do anything. So
because that is what is provided in the constitution that we operate.
Yes, and that is why the call for constitutional amendment has become so loud. At the retreat in Calabar, Governor Dixon pointedly brought out the areas that have made it today. That has made us to begin to shout very loud. Nigerians are beginning to shout very loudly, because we have seen that if we continue to operate the constitution, if we continue to hide within the provisions of the constitution, this country's growth will remain stunted.
All right, Dr. Kachi, the call for restructuring somewhat seem to be not as loud as it was when it all started. But at the Calabar retreat, it was thrown up again. It was thrown up by many of the speakers at that retreat, the senators themselves, who are asking that we should take a second look at the 2014 National Conference report. The governors who spoke, Cross River State Governor, the Governor of Bayelsa State, and others who spoke at the event, who are insisting that restructuring is a call for a reform of the current federal system, of the current Nigerian constitution. How far can a reform or a review of the current constitution address the issues that are contained in the demand for restructuring?
Thank you very much. I will take it from where my friend stopped. The call for restructuring, it's the important thing to do. It's inevitable restructuring will occur. Why? As he was saying, don't forget what we have is a transition from military rule. The military wrote their codes of behavior, which we refer to as decrees, and through Decree 24 advised us to embrace all the military decrees as acts of the National Assembly. So we are in principle operating everything the soldiers wrote. We are not operating what we, the people, agreed to. And that's why we're saying, if you look at what the soldiers wrote, it's the same mindset that the federal system in their way should be a unitary arrangement. But we are saying now that we are a democracy and we are referred to as federal republic, we should allow the people to sit down and then agree to a set of protocols that will govern our being together as people of one country. Just like Governor Dixon said in Calabar, that despite the wealth of arsenal that the Soviet Union had, it still crumbled because it had outlived its strength. The way Nigeria is right now, we are running a numbers-based business. The fraudulent numbers you see bandied all over by the soldiers in both the census figures and all. This is the only country against demographic truth from the equator line from Timbuktu down to Somalia, where we are told against normal demographic truth that the demography here is different from elsewhere in the world. There are more people live in the desert than they do live in the rotten areas. The restructuring is being brought about because it is the main thing that will drive the campaigns. It is what will drive the elections. We have driven that military constitution on such a long thing for 18 years, and we've seen it's not working. And people said, good, since Buhari has come to power and he seems to want to show the real fraudulent mindset that was behind some of those decrees. Look at states like Lagos, largest contributor to federation account, 55% in regards to VAT. What do you see? The money that Lagos contributes for VAT is taken and paid to Kano and other states, which now use them to pay Hizbah. Who uses this money after being the salary paid to Hizbah? Hizbah now arrest customers of Nigerian breweries and Guinness, and also do a public show of the destruction of the assets and logistics that Nigerian breweries uses to actually do his business. These are some of the contradictions that we have seen. So Governor Dixon talked about those contradictions, and he also spoke something very importantly, as my friend stated here, that 30% of the proven gas and oil reserves are actually in the backwaters of the zonation.
We will come to that later on.
They are not allowed to actually express themselves.
Dan, let me come to you. This cry for restructuring has been on for quite some time. But Governor Dickson made a point at the Calabar retreat, which was, as it seems, adopted as part of the communique from that retreat by the senators, which is that the National Assembly ought to take the center stage in the process of restructuring Nigeria. What is hindering them from doing so? Why are we waiting for the report of a conference that was held in 2014 to begin the process of restructuring, when constitutionally the National Assembly is empowered to review and reform the Constitution?
Okay. Well, you know, I think a National Assembly member may be better placed to answer that question. But if I can second guess why they've not taken the initiative the way they should, I would say that maybe it's part of politics that is making them not to, you know, go all out to take that decision. But if you look at the presentation of Governor Dickson, those of us who were there at that meeting were not surprised that at the end of the day, the retreat adopted this position. For instance, Governor Dickson said something that is very significant at that retreat. And again, he restated the fact that the president, as the leader of the country, needs to take the initiative. If you remember, the president himself had also said that the National Assembly has a role to play if we have to restructure the country. But significantly, Governor Dickson said something. And he said that the president needs to convene a meeting of critical stakeholders that will involve the National Assembly members, involve the state houses of assembly, the governors, the religious groups, civil society, something you could call a mini national conference. But it will not be a talk shop. This should be a group of persons that will come together, maybe lock themselves up in a room, tell themselves the truth, so that Nigeria can really move forward. Because the way we are today, it's like we are acting like the ostrich. The ostrich buries its head in the sand. Every other part of its body is outside. The fact that Nigeria is the way it is because the right things have not been done.
Do we really need the president to send a bill or indeed convene a meeting of critical stakeholders before the National Assembly can on his own originate a process for the restructuring of Nigeria, for the review of the Nigerian Constitution to meet the needs and the aspirations of the different groups and segments in Nigeria?
I think constitutionally the president is empowered to do that. And the National Assembly, well, because of the way it is constituted, will not want to, you know, run into any kind of conflict with the president, because he derives his powers from the Constitution, the way they too derive their powers. But if you look at our Constitution, the president has the powers to convoke that kind of meeting. That is what I think. This is my own opinion.
Coach?
Yes, the president, yes, can lead. In this case, he needs to lead, and that's why
if he fails to lead,
well, if he fails to lead,
shouldn't the National Assembly seize the initiative?
You know the problem about the body language of a president in power. If he is not in support of certain movements, some of the people who are his supporters in the legislature may actually try to go against that. In this case, the president has failed to provide leadership, and that's why Governor Dickson said that he should, as a consequence of responsibility, actually take that step to bring critical stakeholders all together. And you saw, as Governor Dickson said, that the senators also adopted that the president should take that step to convoke a stakeholders meeting to actually tell everybody what the truth is. Why? We already have conference reports. So I believe we cannot shy away from taking that which has been done in 2014 which is the outcome of the national conference, to actually begin to tinker. We don't have to get all the laws together at the same time. If there are 130 amendments being sought, and you can at the beginning give expression to about 40%, 50%, 60% of the demands, that is a movement towards changing the structure of the country. For me, and I agree with Governor Dickson, no amount of soldiers or army or holding on to military arsenals can actually stop any idea whose time has come. I believe the only way to secure the sustained existence, like Governor Dickson said, that it is no good for us to continue after we have left the stage. Our children will come and start squabbling. That we should bequeath to the future generation a crisis-free Nigeria, because if we don't stop, the agitations will sustain. And you cannot, from what I have seen, the current generation of young Nigerians, you see, the people with the mindset of no, it's not negotiable. It's not true. Governor Dickson said that even Britain, who gave independence to us, who amalgamated this country, the other day negotiated their way out of Europe by actually going to a referendum, the Brexit thing. And even in the same United Kingdom, Scotland is also doing an agitation, and they're being allowed to have access to a referendum. So you cannot say no, that you must hold the country by force. How? Don't forget what we're saying. The soldiers who made the decrees didn't actually make the decrees to serve a federal republic of Nigeria. No, they made the decree to serve a unitary system of government. And since we have done a transition to a federal Nigeria, we need now to sit down to agree to a class of protocols that will actually befit a federal republic of Nigeria.
Now, okay, Dan, let's take it from there.
Okay.
Because the critics of the agitations for restructuring have said that those who are calling for restructuring are actually calling for disintegration. And we have been reminded time and time again that there is no provision in the Nigerian constitution as it is today for a referendum. But those who are asking for restructuring are doing so and are seeking to disintegrate, break up Nigeria by whatever means.
Well, I think that's a misplaced fear. If you look at the concept of restructuring itself, you only restructure something that is not good. You restructure. There's a structure. The structure is faulty. You want to work on it. You are not saying that you are demolishing that structure. The concept of restructuring, as enunciated by Governor Dickson at that Southern Senators Forum, does not in any way mean the dismemberment of Nigeria. What he advocated is that there should be legal ways, constitutional ways of amending our constitution. We are going to find expression from our constitution if we want to restructure this country. We are not going to use it is not coterminous with separation or division of Nigeria. That is not what restructuring means. So those who are pushing the idea that restructuring means tearing Nigeria apart, they are only expressing a misplaced fear because of lack of understanding of what restructuring means. Restructuring means,
are they not learning one or two lessons from what happened to the big Soviet Union? Well, disintegrated?
Well, internal contradictions led to the disintegration of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a behemoth. It was a giant state, and it had one of the strongest military in the world. But what happened? When the time came, that giant was split in pieces because of internal contradictions. Today in Nigeria, those internal contradictions are staring us in our face. And we are looking at it as if these things are not serious.
One of those internal contradictions, Dan, is the fear that has perpetually been expressed by minority groups in Nigeria. And their perception that they are being dominated by the so-called big three. How will restructuring serve the interests of minorities?
If I borrow the explanation of Governor Dickson at that forum, he gave a new definition a new explanation to the concept of minority rights. Let us look at minority, the word minority within the Nigerian context. And let us look at those who have been opportune to lead this country at the highest level, maybe as president or as heads of state, or have held very key positions, maybe in the military today. Where are they from? You said they are minority, but these same people you call minority have led this country successfully, if you ask me, maybe in quotes, but today, because of, well, maybe reasons that some of us do not know or we cannot explain, you put a tag of minority on them just because you want to keep them, you want to enslave them. But this thing is just a mindset. Today, I do not accept anymore. After listening to Governor Dixon last week Friday, I do not accept anymore that I'm a minority, because somebody from my state has ruled this country. He has been able to lead Nigeria for more than 5 years. So we have also had persons like that. For instance, Gowon, you cannot say that Gowon is from the majority ethnic group. The same thing for Abubakar. And look at all the leaders of this country today. How many of them are really from the majority ethnic groups? So we should begin to take another look at that concept of minority. That is why Governor Dixon said Nigeria has done well in the protection of minority rights, particularly with regards to those who have occupied offices at the highest level.
So if minorities, if people from minority groups have held very privileged high offices in Nigeria, can we still sustain the argument that there is a lot of discrimination and marginalization of minority people and persons in Nigeria?
That is not true. The president today is a Fulani man. The Fulani are a minority, not in Nigeria. Gowon from Angas was head of state. The Angas are a minority in northern Nigeria. The North is the most heterogeneous of all of Nigeria's sites. Babangida, a Nupe man, was head of state. The Nupe is a minority. Abdul Salami is Gbagi. The Gbagi are a minority. So the minority are actually a majority according to Governor Dixon. And I agree, when you aggregate their powers together, and that's what you're seeing right now in the Middle Belt. The aggregation of the emotions of the TV, the Jukun, the Angas, the Birom, is what you see that is driving the current intentions towards the land-based, what do you call it, legislation against open grazing. And this have been done by minorities. So would you call the minorities if they aggregate their strengths together? So the concept of minority is not real, doesn't exist. That's why we seek an inclusive Nigeria.
Okay, we'll talk about how to sustain an inclusive Nigeria when we come back from this short break. Stay with us.
Of our dream, the Nigeria we need is the united, indissoluble and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must watch. People, politics and power on AIT. Join us to build bridges of unity.
People, politics, and power. And my guests are still very much in the studio, Dan Alabra and Dr. Kachanonijo. Gentlemen, before we went on the break, we were talking about an inclusive Nigeria. I think that that's what we should be talking about now, an all-inclusive Nigeria, where every group, every religious persuasion, and perhaps every professional persuasion feels a commitment to the nation called Nigeria.
That's
right. How do we go about that?
We go through restructuring. Restructuring where competition and your personal efforts is what brings you. Look at the list published there 2 days ago, and the National Judicial Council and the Chief Justice Office is denying it.
Yes.
It's not inclusive.
In
so
fact,
if the Southeast has 55% of the JAMB intakes and 54%
like
of
you
the
said,
NYSC.
like you said,
why are they not there?
Like you said, the CGN officer denied that.
Yes, they have denied it.
It's fake news.
But it's also good that they have denied it. But I'm just trying to give you that as a view, because if you look at the appointments so far done by the president into the NNPC, he stacks the place with his minority people who do not have the capacity to gain any employment in the oil and gas industry because they don't have what it takes. So anything that is federal should be.
You do not have facts to back that assertion, but let's not delve into areas that we cannot prove.
Shows me.
Yes, but now we are talking about building an all-inclusive Nigeria. In Nigeria, where majority, minority, or even minor minorities can feel a sense of belonging. How do we go about that?
Well, I do not think there is a better way to go about it than truly restructuring this country, like he said.
Finish.
If you do not restructure, the fear being expressed today will not stop. Bayelsa is the only state in Nigeria today that is completely homogeneous. It's a completely homogeneous just state. So we do not have those challenges of.
You do have a few, one or two ethnic groups that are not Ijaw.
No, there are none. We do not
100%
we do not have issues with marginalization, as you know, the way it is pronounced in some other states, because of the way the Bayelsa state itself is constituted. It's a totally, completely homogeneous Ijaw state, and we see ourselves as Ijaw persons, Ijaw people, from across 6 states in Nigeria. Let me give you an example of how we have been able to use this principle of inclusiveness for Ijaws to see themselves as one. We have a school in Bayelsa today called the Ijaw National Academy. The Ijaw National Academy was conceptualized, built, and established by the Dixon administration. In that school today, you have over 1,000 students. All of them are on scholarship. All of them are in boarding house. They are all boarders. They are all on scholarship, and everything they use in that school, uniform to books to writing materials, everything is provided by the state government. Now, let me tell you the beautiful thing about the Ijaw National Academy. Ijaw National Academy. Are you
recommending that model to Nigeria?
Yes, because it's a model today that encompasses every person that is an Ijaw from the 6 states of Nigeria. We have students from all the Ijaw, from all the states where we have our Ijaw brothers in that school.
So non-Ijaws are not given an opportunity in this school?
Well, this school is meant for Ijaw people. That's why it's called the Ijaw National Academy. Because we are building the minds of our future. The youths that we have in that school today, they are the people who will take over from us when we have gone. So we need to have a place for them, for us to prepare their minds.
That's just in one sector. I'm sure that there are communities in Bayelsa State today where there's probably some disaffection about, we don't have roads, we don't have water, we don't have this. How has the administration been able to tackle?
It is not because of marginalization. Even, of course, government is a continuum. One government is not able to do everything. But today, the situation we have in Bayelsa is such that communities that had not even seen vehicles in their life, this government has built roads to those communities. For instance, if you look at the Sagwama Ikeremo road, that is a road of almost 100 kilometers that was conceptualized almost 40 years ago, but was left abandoned. But today, you could drive to Ayama, you could drive to Alebiri. For the first time, when Governor Distin went to Alebiri early last month, that was the first time they were seeing vehicles in their community. Before now, they were feeling left out. But today, development has reached them. Those communities, particularly the communities in the Ikeremo local government, when they want to go to their town, they go through Delta State. But today, by December,
many of them will be spending Christmas in their villages.
In their communities. So we do not have that call it a problem the way it is in other states. We do not have those. We do not have such
But
challenges.
where we have such challenges is the Nigeria of today, where Bayelsa might be lucky being a homogeneous state, but in Nigeria we are not that homogeneous. We have, well, a guest on my program did say we have well over 625 ethnic groups and nationalities in every part of the country. How do we make them feel a sense of belonging?
Restructuring, and also the protection of minority rights. Minorities are not protected in the Middle Belt. There is currently a cleansing of minorities because of the war over Fadama. Wherever you have lowlands and you have water that collects there, you have fights with the headsmen who come and the indigenous communities. That will need to. But the most important thing is, as Governor Dixon and the Southern governors said, adopt the outcome of the Constitutional Conference and use that to restructure the country. I don't see any way that we can run away from it. For me, I believe the restructuring is inevitable, because the way to predict the future is to look at the past.
Is the 2040 report a magic wand? Can it do all that we...
It is a beginning.
We hope that it
nobody gets from Yenagoa to Meduguri in 1 minute. You must take a step. But take that step to show that people can trust you, that you are actually moving towards that. Now, the Bayelsans, with the 30% of the hydrocarbon reserve that we talked about, what do they have to show? 8 local governments. And you're sharing Nigerian resources through local governments that are actually not floating units. Kanu had 20, Sokoto 20, Lagos 20. Today Kanu has 84.
Jigawa together.
Yes, with Jigawa together, 75. Sokoto has 84. Lagos is still on 20. You see why we say when you restructure, you allow the federating unit in the regions to actually take care of a lot of things. Let the federal government do things like foreign affairs, immigration, and probably customs union, and then do defense, do central banking. But let the federating unit do the rest of the things.
Let me just let me just add that, you know, look at the states in the north. They have solid minerals. These solid minerals are exploited. Nobody criminalizes them for exploiting the solid minerals that they have.
They're not exploited by the state.
Well,
most of it is done illegally.
Whether you like it or not,
he will tell you more about that.
But when you do that in the Niger Delta, for instance, where we have oil resources, you are called a criminal.
Okay.
And the force of the state is brought down on you.
Yes. All right, our time is up, and we must go.
I wanted to comment.
Yes, no, but our time is really up. We must go. We must find some other time to comment on those things. I've been talking with Dan Alabra. He is the special advisor on public affairs to the Bayelsa State Governor. Has joined me on the program, and Dr. Kaj Ononuju, who is DG Heritage Center, a think tank on politics, economics, and opinions. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on People, Politics, and Power. I am Imo Marere. Do have yourself a wonderful day for the rest of today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.